The last 10 years or so with Star Wars and gaming has been, simply put, pathetic. This is something that we've talked extensively about on the channel over the years. It's just been a mess, and this even predates the Disney EA Star Wars exclusivity deal, like Star Wars 1313, probably the most promising Star Wars project in the last decade, but that was canned once Lucasfilm was purchased by Disney, and really there has not been much hope the last number of years that we're going to be getting something promising, because EA having that exclusivity seemed like they didn't really care. I guess that's the best way to put it. And a lot of us have been hopeful for another developer to get their hands on this IP and do something amazing with it. And it looks like there is some hope finally. It took years, but here we are. Now remember, this deal was signed all the way back in 2013. It was supposed to be something that was going to be promising. Star Wars Battlefront, a lot of people loved that idea, DICE getting in on that. But that ended up being a mess. Star Wars Battlefront, the 2015 installment, disappointed with a lack of content. Star Wars Battlefront 2, well, we all know how that launch went. One of the most disastrous ones in gaming. Loot box debacle, which stirred up a lot of drama within government circles in terms of monetization in AAA gaming. And then we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which actually was a pretty decent experience. And then Star Wars Squadrons, another solid experience, but not a AAA game. And then there's a bunch of other Star Wars projects over the years that have been canceled. Project Ragtag, Visceral Games went under, Project Viking. There's just so many projects that we know of, and then there's probably ones that we don't know of that were canceled. So like I said, the last 8 years under EA with Star Wars has been bad. It's just not been great. And it doesn't even seem like Electronic Arts really cared about this exclusivity. There's been rumors that Andrew Wilson just never cared about this deal because he didn't sign it. This predates him. So the fact that we're hearing big news now that Lucasfilm Games is moving on to other developers, that is not too surprising. But if you have not heard the breaking news, it's the fact that Lucasfilm Games is now working with Ubisoft on an open world Star Wars project. We're going to talk more about that in a second, but let's talk about the actual other news that broke the other day, and that is the news that Bethesda is now working on an Indiana Jones game. It's very interesting that we have Indiana Jones entering the gaming circles while Uncharted is entering the movie landscape. But either way, the big announcement with this is that Machine Games is developing an Indiana Jones game, and Bethesda's Todd Howard is actually going to be serving as an executive producer. I'm actually very happy by Machine Games taking on this project. Their last game, what was it, Wolfenstein Youngblood, did not like that. That was a bad mistake. Live service, no. But single-player, story-driven games, that's their wheelhouse. Wolfenstein: The New Order was a phenomenal game, and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, these are underrated experiences in my personal opinion. I just loved absolutely every second of those games, and I just feel like not enough people actually played them. So yes, I feel like they're a great fit for an Indiana Jones game. But the decision to team up with Bethesda, this just shows a drastic shift with how Lucasfilm Games is operating. As they announced on just a couple of days ago, even before this Bethesda announcement, they're beginning a new era. We saw their accounts being rebranded. I think that's what a lot of us assumed, it was just a rebrand, but it actually looks like it's much more than that. And it looks like Lucasfilm, or at least Disney, is preparing for a new era in gaming. And it looks like they're going to be taking the Marvel approach. What do I mean by that? Well, we've seen Insomniac Games and Sony team up for Spider-Man. I think a lot of people get confused by that, thinking that that was just Sony's deal, but no, Marvel actually did assist with that decision, and they actually gave Insomniac Games the choice of any character. Insomniac chose Spider-Man. And then more recently, we did see Marvel team up with Square Enix for the Marvel Avengers game project, and that, turned out to be a mess. But my point is that Marvel's been teaming up with developers on a title-by-title basis, looking for developers to create some innovative experiences. Obviously, the success of that has not been great so far, but with having more developers outside of Electronic Arts making Star Wars games, I definitely feel that there's got to be something that's worthwhile that is produced by this. We could also see some of our favorite developers get in on Star Wars long-term, which is exciting. But I guess the one confusing thing about this new deal is the fact that there was said to be a 10-year exclusivity deal between EA and Disney. The question is, did it get ripped up? Or is these game announcements just happening now and they're not going to be released until after this deal is complete, which is said to be sometime in 2023? A lot of questions that aren't answered right now, but actually let's go to the initial announcement, which is coming from Wired, who actually interviewed some of Ubisoft and Disney about this new deal that they have together. So today, Lucasfilm Games announced that it is entering a partnership with Ubisoft to create an open-world Star Wars game. The title will be developed by Ubisoft's Massive Entertainment, marking the first time that a company outside of Electronic Electronic Arts has produced a Star Wars game since Disney acquired Lucasfilm in 2012, ending nearly 8 years of exclusivity. Also in the works is a new Indiana Jones game to be developed by Bethesda Game Studios. Well, actually not, it's actually Machine Games, a newcomer to Lucasfilm's and Disney's properties. And obviously, Todd Howard is serving as executive producer, but it's not Bethesda Game Studios. This article is confused by that. But regardless, having the Division developer behind this, I guess the question is this going to be like a bounty hunter, looter shooter type of deal? Not too exciting in my opinion, but who knows what direction that they plan to take this with. And ultimately, I think even if you're disappointed by Ubisoft getting behind this, the door's open for other developers to get in on this long term. Anyway, it continues, it says, let's start with Star Wars. Development on this new title is still very early. Massive is still recruiting for the project even, so details are sparse. Julian Garrity, director of The Division 2 and the crew, will serve as the game's creative director, and the title will use Massive Snowdrop engine. And it continues, while Electronic Arts has previously suggested that the company would have exclusivity on Star Wars games for 10 years, it seems like either that was misstated or the clock has run out early. Regardless, EA will keep making games in the future, but Lucasfilm Games is free to seek other partners. And that's a really key detail I think a lot of people may be missing. EA is not going to be done with making Star Wars games. It just means other developers are going to be getting in on the fun. So yes, Jedi Fallen Order 2 is still obviously coming, but I think some people assuming or maybe thinking about a Battlefront 3, I don't think that that's going to be happening, and it doesn't really seem like Electronic Arts is at all interested in that right now. But ultimately, I guess that's great news for those who want to see more Cal Kestis. Anyway, it continues, it says, EA has been and will continue to be a very strategic and important partner for us now and going forward. Sean Shoptaw, Senior Vice President of Global Games and Interactive Experiences at Disney, told Wired, but we did feel like there's room for others. And that's good, because I think that's been one of the criticisms a lot of fans have had of Disney, is that there's just not been enough people having their hands on Star Wars making games. Remember the glory days, 20 years ago? It was amazing. Star Wars just delivered so many great games, and we haven't seen that. We have not seen that in the 2010s, and I think there was a lot of doubt we'd see that this decade, but now there is some hope. Anyway, it continues, it says, however, in the years since, the EA exclusivity deal has been criticized as a bottleneck to that goal. It has. Aside from a few small mobile or VR games, the number of major Star Wars games from EA since 2013 can be counted on one hand. Yes, Battlefront, Battlefront 2, Jedi Fallen Order, and Squadrons, and then a whole bunch of games that sounded innovative and really interesting that all got cancelled, because EA's executives wanted to rush out games and didn't care about innovation, which is honestly pretty sad, but it's also why a lot of people do not have faith in Electronic Arts with this exclusivity deal, and now it looks like it's about to be over. Now we have a comment coming from the Ubisoft CEO. He says, the Star Wars galaxy is an amazing source of motivation for our teams to innovate and push the boundaries of our medium. Building new worlds, characters, and stories that will become lasting parts of the Star Wars lore is an incredible opportunity for us, and we are excited to have our Ubisoft Massive Studio working closely with Lucasfilm Games to create an original Star Wars adventure that is different from anything that has been done before. We'll see about that. And it continues, I think if you look at the games landscape, it's such a diverse population of folks across the world that make games, Shoptaw explains. For us to go capture the amount of quality that exists in the world and be fast to market, it would be a big challenge for us to do that internally. And that's ultimately one thing that I think a lot of people will, no matter what, still be disappointed by. The fact that LucasArts still doesn't exist. Like, they're not making games, they're just throwing their IP to other developers. But regardless, this is a move in the right direction, taking the Marvel approach. Anyway, we continue on, actually some news on Indiana Jones. Among that camp, Todd Howard is working on this. The famed director of Skyrim, among many other games, is also a huge Indiana Jones fan. What's been most inspiring about the indie game in particular is that it's a passion project for Todd Howard. He came in with a point of view and a story that he really believes in. And it's actually been said that Todd Howard is serving as executive producer on this, the Fallout project, and it's been most importantly said that this will not take his time away from Starfield or the Elder Scrolls 6. So if you're worried that Todd's taking on too much stuff, it doesn't seem like that's going to affect those games' timeline. And personally, I do think we're going to be hearing some big news about Starfield later this year, as I expect it probably to release in the fall 2021. Now we have a comment coming from Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, saying, as we look to the next 50 years of Lucasfilm, we look forward to continuing the wonderful legacy in games, which has introduced so many memorable characters and stories. These new collaborations will allow the Lucasfilm Games team to pursue fresh and exciting directions in the storytelling of Star Star Wars and Indiana Jones and imaginative in different ways than those explored by our films. And then the final quote coming from this article is, when people are paying $70 or they're paying good amounts of money to spend time with your content and play your game, you've got to reward that investment. And this is a step in the right direction, and it means that we can actually get excited for some of these Star Wars projects. Now, as of recording this video, as this is a developing story, we actually have an official statement coming from Lucasfilm, which provides a few more details about the future direction of Star Wars and gaming and their new direction as a company. We've got a lot of stuff we're ready to start sharing with fans, Lucasfilm Games VP Douglas Raleigh tells StarWars.com, because we've been working quietly behind the scenes for a while now, waiting for this moment. And by this moment, Raleigh is referring to a new direction and era for Star Wars and Lucasfilm Gaming overall, as Lucasfilm Games is now opening the doors to developers that want to come play in the galaxy far, far away. We're looking to work with best-in-class teams that can make great games across all of our IP. We've got a team of professionals here at Lucasfilm Games who can work with the developers, shape the story, shape the creative, shape the games to make them really resonate with fans and deliver across a breadth of platforms, genres, and experiences so that all our fans can enjoy the IPs that they know and love, he says. Case in point, the huge news that Lucasfilm Games and Ubisoft are collaborating on a new story-driven, open-world Star Wars game. It's a genre long requested by fans and will come to life via massive entertainment, so there's the confirmation that this is in fact an open-world experience. We're really excited about the opportunity to work with the team at Massive, led by David Poffolt and the creative director Julian Garrity. We've spent almost a year now working to get to know them and what they want to bring to the table, so it looks like that this has been in development for about a year, at least early production on it. We know that fans of Star Wars value the feeling of immersion, of being transported into the Star Wars galaxy and moving through richly detailed environments. It's fun to imagine what the team at Massive can do with Star Wars by bringing their innovative spirit and their commitment to quality. And then here we have some details finally on what's going on with Electronic Arts. It says, continuing the relationship that resulted in the reinvigorated Battlefront series, if that's what you want to describe that as, the critically acclaimed Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and multiplayer hit Star Wars Squadrons, Electronic Arts will too play a big role in the future of Star Wars gaming. We're really proud of the games we have created with EA, Raleigh says. We will continue working with them, and our relationship has never been stronger. Of course, what do you think they're going to say? While we may not have a lot of details to share at the moment, we've got a number of projects underway with the talented teams at Electronic Arts. Now, what these projects will include, probably Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order sequel, and maybe there is a KOTOR remake on the way. We'll talk about that in a second later in this video, but as with EA over the last few years, Lucasfilm Games will continue to guide titles from the franchise perspective, from ensuring Star Wars authenticity to story connectivity with the larger saga. We try and help them leverage their passion, expertise, and idea by bringing our expertise around the IP, our ability to connect with other parts of Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company to amplify that, to make it even bigger than they might imagine, Raleigh says. We want to uncover the stories they've always imagined telling and make them resonate with our fans and across the wider Star Wars galaxy. This is really the culmination of years of preparing to come out and say, we're here, we've got a team of people, we're going to make a lot of great games, and here's some new things you weren't expecting from us to do that we're now starting to do. And that's going to continue throughout the next year or so, where we're going to continue to announce projects that are more representative of the legacy of the old Lucasfilm games that we're now trying to live up to, and that's exciting. And then it concludes with the following statement. It says, for Star Wars and Lucasfilm Games, there's a lot to be excited about in the realm of gaming, and Raleigh promises there's more to come. This is just the beginning of what I think is going to be a very exciting year for Lucasfilm Games. So obviously they're teasing that there's going to be some more Star Wars announcements coming later on this year, maybe from Electronic Arts, maybe from some other mysterious developers that have possibly been working on their own games. But I think there are a couple conclusions that I can make from this statement, and it's exciting that I guess Ubisoft is making a story-driven open-world Star Wars game. I kind of wonder if that means that it's not going to be like The Division. Only time will tell. It's probably years away from release or even being shown off. But there's also, part of this statement does a good job of downplaying the fact that Disney is moving away from Electronic Arts, saying that they've never been stronger. That's just obviously not true. And I personally think part of the problem with EA always having this exclusivity was that they just did not want to invest all of their resources into Star Wars. They want to focus on their IP because maximizing profit. You can't do that with Disney and Star Wars when you have to pay licensing fees and whatever else they have to go through. But that's why we've seen BioWare focusing on Anthem Anthem, Mass Effect, and Dragon Age. Those are franchises they own. As has been the case the last number of years, that will be their top priority, which was always the problem with EA having exclusivity for a franchise that they didn't really care too much for. You gotta remember, in this AAA games industry, especially with top dogs like Electronic Arts, Take-Two Interactive, and Activision Blizzard, innovation isn't the top priority anymore. It's about making all the money in the world. It's not about making money, it's about making all the money. So for right now, what we know about this upcoming Star Wars project, it's that Julian Garrity is going to be serving as the creative director. It'll be based on the Snowdrop engine. It's very early in development, and it's probably going to be open world. Outside of that, we don't know. I would imagine that this game is probably a couple of years away, but they're getting obviously the announcement out of the way, indicating that a new direction for Star Wars is coming. And Kotaku's Jason Schreier, actually Bloomberg's now, he said, with today's news that Ubisoft Massive is making a Star Wars game, it's official that the EA exclusivity arrangement won't be renewed past 2023. Good news for Star Wars fans and probably even for EA, whose current leaders inherited a licensing deal they never wanted. In the 8 years since EA signed the deal, the publisher has released 4 games, 2 Battlefronts, Jedi Fallen Order Squadrons, and cancelled at least 3, Ragtag, Orca, Viking. Don't think that's quite the decade Frank Gibeau was hoping for, and I believe that's the former EA CEO who actually signed that deal back in 2012-2013. Ultimately, before I wrap up this video, I just want to say that I know a lot of people are probably going to be commenting saying Ubisoft making a Star Wars game, yawn, but I think the real key detail to make out of this is the fact that EA is no longer holding onto the exclusivity of Star Wars, and that excites me, because this doesn't just mean that Ubisoft is going to be making a Star Wars game. We could see some other developers. A couple of months ago, I would have been extremely excited about the prospect of CD Projekt Red making a Star Wars open world RPG. But who knows the other developers that could get behind this in the future, and I think there's some really exciting things that could happen. Ultimately, we could get that Star Wars 1313 that we all wanted to see about a decade ago, and maybe now it's possible. And also, I wanted to see a KOTOR 3. That was my original expectation and hope when EA signed that exclusivity deal back in 2012-2013. I thought that BioWare would make a KOTOR 3, but that did not happen. And there has been some rumors that a KOTOR remake is actually in development by a mysterious developer coming, it's unknown, and it's not even clear if that project has been moving forward. But for right now, I guess the good news of all of this news that we talked about in this video is the fact that Lucasfilm Games is going in a new direction, one that does not strictly include Electronic Arts. So that means that we could have some great Star Wars games in the future ahead. Honestly, though, Marvel has had some success, some not, but I think there's hope that we'll at least get one good game out of this new direction, at least in the next couple of years. But it's going to take time. It seems like it's still early days with a lot of the games that they're now putting in development, like Ubisoft's project, but we'll have to see what happens. But for right now, I'm feeling a lot better than I have before about Star Wars and gaming. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about this big breaking news down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games. And again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.